Welcome my fellow Spartans to analysing the Halo TV show. I'm your host Samuel034 aka Triple S, and in this video we'll be analysing the second episode of the first season, Unbound. I'll be going through what I like and dislike about the episode, how it compares to and fits with other Halo media that I am knowledgeable of, and I'll also bring up anything I find interesting or noteworthy enough to mention. There might be spoilers for future episodes and other media related to Halo as well, so you've been warned. Also, I would love to hear your thoughts on this video and what other movies, TV shows, etc. you'd like to see me cover, so please let me know in a comment below. With all that said, let's begin. Number 1, and right off the bat, did a robot that doesn't need to sleep come up with this god-awful design for a bed? You know what helps me get to sleep at night? A bright-ass light right above my head. Number 2, his palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, there's vomit on his sweater already, mom spaghetti. Number 3, Soren 066 of the Silver Timeline is a big change from the Soren 066 of the Blue Timeline. In the Blue Timeline, the muscular enhancement injections and thyroid implants physically deformed him a lot more severely than in the Silver Timeline. When he stood, he realised there was something wrong with his legs. They were strong, the muscles differentiated and much larger than before, but the muscles had done something to the bone, twisting them, curving them in odd directions. One leg was more or less normal, just a little bowed and twisted. The other, though, was gnarled and a good 6 inches shorter and seemed more comfortable when folded up. That leg's ankle was rubbery and left the foot flopping. He could still stand, but only at an angle, leaning far to the side, and he was more comfortable, he realised, if he used a hand for balance as well. His arms too were rippling with muscles and seemed almost impossibly strong. They were for the most part fine, they were hardly deformed or relatively straight, but the fingers of one hand had become twisted and bowed, functioning now less like individual articulated digits and more like a single pincer or claw. Because of this, he couldn't actually wear any kind of Spartan armour nor fire any weapon with his deformed hand, so he was denied being able to enter active service. His reasoning for defecting from the UNSC is also different in the Blue Timeline compared to the Silver Timeline. Rather than not wanting to become essentially a machine devoid of humanity like in the Silver Timeline, in the Blue Timeline he became bitter at being stuck doing desk work and was eventually convinced by a technician named Parch to escape and join the insurrection. He never tried to convince John to defect with him. Soren and Parch attempted to escape reaching a longsword but was shot down. When the wreckage was investigated, the body of Parch was discovered, but Soren had survived and disappeared into the wilderness. His upbringing in the woods convinced Halsey that Soren would never be found unless he wanted to be, and the search for him was called off. He was declared missing in action and never seen again. Apparently though, in the Silver Timeline, we find out the search was never called off, and Soren had to survive and evade the UNSC for months whilst living like Simba after bumping into Timon and Pumbaa until he finally managed to get off reach. And then at some point in time, John became aware of Soren being at the rubble, maybe through a report of Soren being positively identified. I mean, he still goes by Soren, wears his chest plate with his number on it, and he doesn't hide his deformed arm, so it wouldn't be at all difficult to figure out who he is, and then Master Chief somehow found out about this report. Number 4, I have heard so many people complaining about how Slit Space is such a void of nothing that outside of the Condor should just be pitch black when this episode came out, and that's another reason why the show is so much worse than the Blue Timeline. Well, I have 2 things to say to that. 1, artistic license to give the person watching this television show a visual medium, something interesting to look at. It's the same as like Star Wars having sound in space, so you have something to listen to during the space battles. And 2, before you also complain about that defense, this show is not the first piece of Halo media to give colour to Slit Space. Halo Wars Genesis depicts Slit Space as resembling purplish nebula. Halo Fall of Reach Boot Camp depicts it as a bluish-white tunnel of lines and quadrilateral figures. And in Halo Nightfall, it appears as a blue-white tunnel. Where were all of these complaints about Slit Space having colour when these pieces of media came out? And it's not even like it's Slit Space itself that has colour in the show, it's just the wake around the Condor that has colour. Look at this shot at the rest of the dimension and marvel at the sheer black voidness of it. Number 5.
What is it exactly?
I'm sorry, Dave. I don't have enough information.
Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Number 6. Kwan really doesn't have to be that scared here. With a Spartan's increased reflexes and reaction time, navigating through this asteroid field is a doddle for the Master Chief. Number 7. And we get our first look at the rubble, and I'm going to take the time now to explain how different and worse its appearance is compared to the rubble in the Blue Timeline. In the Cull Protocol, the rubble is described as being a large collection of asteroids all connected to each other by massive clear docking tubes, like in say Event Horizon, but clear and a whole lot bigger and flexible. And rather than take an incredibly dangerous looking rail/cable car ride like in the show, I mean seriously, who would trust their life to something that flies off of its track, free falls and has to not miss when grabbing hold of a cable line which appears out of nowhere, I might add, which makes no sense. In the Call Protocol, with the lack of gravity, you just pull yourself along the tube via railings or take a ride of the transit cars on a maglev track, you know, like in the Halo 2 multiplayer map terminal. And you might be asking yourself, how do the residents of the rubble stop the asteroids from drifting and crashing into each other? Well, in the show, I have no idea, but in the Call Protocol, the rubble is actually run and maintained by the smart AI Juliana. Each asteroid possesses a means of propulsion, and according to Juliana, they couldn't handle the course corrections manually to keep asteroids connected to each other. They needed the constant and genius-like attention of someone like me. And since smart AIs aren't yet a thing in the Silver Timeline, it's anyone's guess how the residents of the rubble have figured out how to keep the entire thing from falling apart. Number 8, and apparently the Silver Timeline's rubble has like no security or screening process for incoming ships. Anyone could just show up and land, no problem. You would think if the place is indeed
home, every misfit, reprobate, outlaw, and renegade in the galaxy,
as Soren says, they wouldn't be wanting folks from the UEG and UNSC showing up and entering the rubble. Who knows though, maybe off-screen, John and Soren got in touch with each other as John and Kwan were flying in and Soren authorized their landing, or Soren was informed of an incoming UNSC Condor requesting to land and gambled on it being John or something, but that's me writing for the show. Number 9, how boring must these rubble residents' lives be that they find the idea of blocking the path of the Spartan with a forklift a victory that deserves celebration? They've clearly never played Halo Reach. Number 10, Soren telling Chi to take off and leave his armor implies Soren either acquired or made an equivalent to the gyro apparatus that can put on and remove a Spartan's armor as we see in episode 1, or that a Spartan by themselves or with a helper can fully remove their armor without the gyro apparatus. It's just a more lengthy process. Number 11, did anyone else notice this is the exact same shot of High Charity from episode 1, just zoomed out a bit and at a different angle? I mean, look at the ships, their number and movements match up exactly. Number 12, having watched The Last of Us and seeing all the fungus in that, this fungus looking room now really creeps me out. Number 13, it really does raise the question of how the Covenant in both the Silver and Blue timelines reconcile their belief that humans need to be eradicated with the fact that only humans can utilize certain foreigner technology.
What's the matter, big shot? Can't start your own party?
I admit, I need your help.
Like, Tartarus was a zealous believer in the Great Journey and the Covenant's extermination of humanity, but at the same time accepted the fact he needed to keep a human alive to activate Installation 05. So is it that the prophets of the Silver Timeline have decreed to all that Makee just deserves to not be killed like the rest of the race, and the Covenant accepts it because if they don't they will be punished, sent to the Ministry of Love, or just straight up executed? Or are all lower Covenant members not of proven absolute loyalty who interact with Makee eventually quietly murdered? They essentially become unpersoned, and the knowledge of the existence of Makee is kept known to only a few who will keep it a secret.
But that secret dies with all the rest.
Damn, when you look at the Covenant through the lens of 1984, it really starts to make a lot more sense. Number 14, I'm no expert on Sangheili body language, but this guy in my opinion really doesn't seem to like being told what to do by Makee. Number 15, something I forgot to mention in my previous video is the difference in how Cortana comes to be named Cortana in the Silver Timeline compared to the Blue Timeline. In the Silver Timeline, Halsey has already decided that the AI she is hoping to create will be called Cortana, whereas in the Blue Timeline, it's Cortana herself who chooses her own name.
What do I call her?
Ask her. She named herself.
Hello, Master Chief. I'm Cortana.
Number 16. Okay, wow. Silver Timeline Halsey is way more of a monster than the Halsey of the Blue Timeline. Sure, Blue Timeline Halsey also engaged in kidnapping 6-year-olds and replacing them with clones that wouldn't live that long, then subjecting those 6-year-olds to harsh physical and mental training. But at least she didn't then plan on completely overwriting their minds with AIs, effectively killing them.
Unlike previous AI models, she will reside between your mind and the suit, directly communicating with your neural interface. Think of her as a new set of eyes to aid your reactions and upgrade your reconnaissance. She's not the driver, but a way to level the playing field.
Silver Timeline Halsey essentially wants to do what happens to Bane in The Matrix Reloaded, when Smith, a program, an AI, uploads himself into the IRL Bane, completely erasing the poor guy's mind and taking control of his body.
It will overwrite Spartan consciousness and replace it with a artificial general intelligence.
She's not the driver.
Overwrites.
She's not the driver.
Replace.
Can't just replace his mind. We are talking about a person.
Blue Timeline Halsey would most definitely punch Silver Timeline Halsey in the mouth harder than when Lucy B091 punched Halsey in Halo Glasslands, a punch which really should have killed the over 60-year-old Halsey since Lucy was in her spy armor. Number 17. Best way to get across a character as being a ruthless bastard? Have him execute a whole bunch of people without a second thought. At least he's getting some respect from Ned Stark.
The man who passes the sentence should swing the sword.
Number 18. Damn, he got camera ready fast, making the blood on his face disappear instantly like that. Number 19. So, in the Blue Timeline, there is a character called Reth, who is connected to the rubble. The thing is though, they ain't a human, they're a jackal. Yes, in the Blue Timeline, it isn't just humans who live on the rubble, jackals do as well. Jackals are only part of the Covenant in return for money and trading opportunities rather than for believing in the Great Journey. Reth, who is actually a believer in the Great Journey, works undercover at the rubble under the orders of the Prophet of Truth to trade modified Covenant weapons to humans that are trackable, in the hopes that one of these weapons will lead them to humanity's homeworld, Earth. In return for this, the rubble will be given to the jackals, which will be a perfect nesting site for them. This plan though goes food nipple up, however, when the Prophet of Regret, who doesn't know about the Prophet of Truth's plan, discovers these modified weapons and sends Thel Vadami to find out who's been trading them. Thel captures Reth and he's tortured for being a heretic because he claims he's under orders from the Prophet of Truth. Because, of course, he must be lying. How could the two hierarchs not know of each other's plans and as such give out conflicting orders? Reth manages to escape and heads to the nearby moon of Metaset, where he's been breeding a grunt army to use said army to invade the rubble and prove his loyalty. However, he never gets the chance to send his army to the rubble because the rubble ends up coming to him. The AI of the rubble, Juliana, positions the settlement in the orbital path of the moon and they end up colliding, the asteroids of the rubble, from Reth's perspective, raining down onto him and his grunt army, annihilating them all. So yeah, Jackal Reth of the Blue Timeline is absolutely nothing like human Reth of the Silver Timeline. Number 20. Where to start though with Silver Timeline Reth? Soren and he mention he was captive of the Covenant at some point, though we never learn how he ended up at the rubble. Did he somehow escape? Unlikely. Was he for some reason released? Again, unlikely. Or was he rescued? This, I think, is the most likely. Maybe he was found in a Covenant ship that was boarded by humans, or that was docked somewhere, or after a space battle where the alien ship crashed or was disabled, or maybe he was broken out of a Covenant outpost infiltrated by humans on some random planet or moon. Who knows? Number 21, Reth, despite presumably not knowing any Covenant language, somehow knows what a Blessed One is, which is explained by him saying Chief is different to the Blessed One the Covenant have, so he must have spoken with Makee at some point. And I don't know how I feel about Chief and Makee being Blessed Ones, being the only ones able to activate the keystones. Makes me think of Neo in the Matrix, who is able to do things no one else can do only because he's the chosen one, an anomaly. Miranda reveals to Chief in episode 6 Solace that he and Makee share a remarkably similar gene alignment that's unique to only them, which could be why only they can interact with foreign technology, though Miranda does say this is only a possibility, not a certainty. Maybe instead it's some form of geas imposed on humanity that has for some reason only been unlocked for Master Chief and Makee, and in time maybe it will unlock for the rest of humanity, allowing them to all use foreigner technology? Or maybe humanity already can use the rest of foreigner technology, but the keystones specifically can only be activated by certain humans. Number 22, as well as learning she's a Blessed One, he also learned about the ring, that the Covenant wants it, and how it is a weapon that will bring about the end of life as they know it. And if you have an issue with Reth saying Halo is indeed a weapon...
Yeah, the Covenant don't believe it's a weapon.
Yeah, they don't believe it's a weapon.
Yeah.
I'd like to remind you of this scene from Halo Combat Evolved, which this scene between Chief and Reth is essentially just a different version of.
While the Covenant had us locked up in here, I overheard the guards talking about this ring world. They call it Halo.
One moment, sir. Accessing the Covenant BattleNet. According to the data in their networks, the ring has some kind of deep religious significance. If I'm analyzing this correctly, they believe that Halo is some kind of weapon, one with vast, unimaginable power.
Also, we don't know what exactly Makee said to Reth, how she might have described the ring and what it will do. She could have described it in such a way that it sounded very much like a weapon to Reth. If we go with how the Prophet of Truth describes what will happen when the rings are activated to those who are quote-unquote not worthy in the Halo 2 mission The Heretic.
Soon the great journey shall begin. But when it does, the weight of your heresy will stay your feet, and you shall be left behind.
And how the Prophet of Mercy describes the activation of the Halo rings in the Halo 2 mission Sacred Icon.
Halo! Its divine wind will rush through the stars, propelling all who are worthy along the path to salvation.
And if we suppose this is how Makee described Halo and its activation, I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty damn similar to the Rapture to me. And if reading the Left Behind book series taught me anything about the Rapture, it's that those who are,
left behind
don't have that happy of a time living through the 7 years of hell that comes after the Rapture. Oh, would you look at that, Bungie's favourite number. So, the Covenant want to get their various alien appendages on a mysterious giant artificial ring that can affect the entire galaxy and bring about an event that incredibly resembles the Rapture. Yeah, sounds kind of like a weapon to me. Number 23, with Makee's hesitance to undress and then looking over her own body afterwards, I can only assume she tries as much as possible to keep herself covered at all times, most likely in an attempt to distance herself from humanity in the eyes of her fellow Covenants. Number 24, so clone Halsey being bald and having no eyebrows gives the impression she's meant to not have any hair at all on her body, but then she still has eyelashes? Confusing. To round all this off, my most disliked part of the episode goes to the Silver Timeline's version of the rubble. The impossibility of it being maintained at all without a smart AI, and its incredibly dangerous and impractical transport system being two of the major issues I have with it. It actually makes me think of the Game of Thrones version of the Eyrie as compared to the A Song of Ice and Fire version, the show version looking like a cheap knockoff of the book version. Ugly ass termite mound. And my most liked part of the episode goes to the inclusion of such a minor character as Soren, with his only appearance in the Blue Timeline being in the short story Pariah from Halo Evolutions, and then never again appearing or being mentioned anywhere else. It's nice to see him get some more love. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe to be notified when I upload new content, and show your support for the channel by liking and sharing this video with your friends and relevant communities. Thank you again for watching. I've been Triple S, you've all been amazing, and I shall see you all in the next video.